welcome. We call today's meeting of the Delta Township Planning Commission
Agenda up.
to order. If you would all stand for the pledge, please. Let's see.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. We will have our roll call. Commissioner McConnell, please.
Yes, Commissioner Mudry.
Here, present.
Commissioner Maddow is absent, I believe.
Yes.
Commissioner Weinfeld.
Present.
O'Connell is here. Commissioner Bradley.
Here.
Commissioner Schweitzer.
Present.
Commissioner Elzinga.
Here.
Vice Chair Kaczynski.
Here.
And Chair Hunt Proctor.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
It's
Support.
moved and supported by Commissioner Schweitzer and
Weinfeld.
Weinfeld, I'm sorry. Any additional comments? Changes to the agenda? All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Next is approval of the minute, please.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the minutes and I have a comment
Yes, sir.
after a second.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner McConnell and supported by Commissioner Kozinski. Comments?
Yes, under the minutes, under approval of minutes, it says the August 12th minutes were approved as amended, but it doesn't say what the amendments corrected. So technically it's correct, but incomplete. So because it's an official record, we should probably include that information.
Anything else? Further comments? All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. We have no correspondence, correct, since we got the agenda?
That's correct.
Okay, and no old business at this time. Public hearing. Need a motion to open the public hearings?
Moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. McConnell.
Madam Chair, we have rezoning number PRZ 2024-0003 in parentheses K2 Retail Construction and Development to rezone 39.27 acres on the north side of West Saginaw Highway, immediately west of Interstate 69, 96 portions of parcel number 040-100-047-01, comma, number 040-09-300-033-04, comma, number 040-9-300-033-05, and parcel number 040-009-300-033-03, end of parens, from AG2 agricultural residential to C commercial.
Thank you. Director Menzer, I believe it's you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. So
First, may I make a comment?
yeah, please.
We have a very busy agenda tonight, so we're going to ask that everyone please try to stick to the topic. Be respectful. Please do not talk over each other. And if you wish to speak, you need to come up to the mic and give your name and address and who you represent, please. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. So the first item on the agenda, which admittedly is a lot of stuff here, is a rezoning for ultimately to facilitate the construction of a Bass Pro Shop retail store. So what you're seeing in the staff memo and on the overhead right now in the shaded hatch marks are the area that's proposed for rezoning. It's almost 40 acres, 39.27. And it represents both the Bass Pro Shop, but also other components of the Delta Crossings development. So in your meeting packet, there are a couple different items related to this. But this is probably the best exhibit in terms of seeing the scope of what the rezoning would be. So let me just move ahead of here. So my staff memo goes into great detail about the different land uses that are allowed in the proposed zoning districts. It's going from, the applicant's proposing to go from AG2 agriculture to commercial, and ultimately will facilitate the development of this commercial development. The other areas that are shown, because it goes beyond just the Bass Pro site. Bass Pro site is in that salmon color along the east side of the property, along the highway. But the areas to the west of that are identified on your phasing plan that is in the, that's in a different, sorry. We have a lot of stuff on here and I'm already getting confused on what's where. But it refers to some areas that are outside the Bass Pro Shop that are identified as future development sites on the phasing plan for Delta Crossings. So that's why it's a larger area. And the other reason is extends beyond Bass Pro is we require a landscape buffer. Oh, thanks, Dave. So the area in blue is the proposed Bass Pro Shop development. What you're seeing also proposed for rezoning of the areas that are in red there, phase 4B, and then the areas to the north of that that are part of phase 6. So one, this was to prepare the land to get proper zoning for future phases of development of Delta Crossings, but also there are landscape buffers associated with buffer between commercial and agricultural zoning, that this would help the Bass Pro, it would alleviate those buffers for the Bass Pro Shop. There's still landscape requirements, but it wouldn't be as big with it being adjacent to residential. So that's why the larger rezoning area than just this site. So I'll just do the quick hits because I know we've got a long night here. The future land use map does designate this area in commercial. There is also a little bit of office in the future land use map for this area, but the majority of it is, the intent was to be all commercial. There are a lot of differences between agricultural zoning and commercial zoning, just really completely different standards, and the list of permitted land uses differ significantly between the two districts. The site has public utilities available in the vicinity to serve it. Any of these potential development sites that, and keep in mind, there are 3 other items for Delta Crossings on the agenda this evening, but those plans, as part of the site plan review process, the utility plan is being reviewed by our engineering and utilities departments. The staff memo goes through the rezoning criteria, of which there are 6. So I provided just basic responses to those. Nothing jumped out to me as reasons, at least not to consider the rezoning. You may have reasons to identify why it might not be appropriate. And then the staff has prepared a motion to recommend approval of the rezoning to the board. Keep in mind, with the rezoning, the Planning Commission's advisory. This would then move on to the Township Board at a future, don't have a meeting date identified for that yet, but this would go on to the board for final action. And the board's process is 2 steps. They would introduce it at 1 meeting and then have a consideration and final decision at a 2nd meeting. So yeah, if anyone has any questions for us, the development team is right here in the 2nd row on your right. So they'll be here with us all night on all these requests. So thank you.
Questions? Right. Anyone from the public wish to speak, representing? All right, go faster than we. Okay, giving you one last chance. Do or die, this is it. All right. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to close the public hearing.
Support.
Mr. McConnell and who went first?
Weinfeld.
Weinfeld. Been moved and supported to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. It is the pleasure of the commissioners.
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right.
I move that the planning commission recommend to the Delta Township Board of Trustees approval of the request to rezone 39.27 acres on the north side of West Saginaw Highway, immediately west of Interstate 69/96 from AG to agricultural residential to C commercial for the following reasons, of which there are 5.
All right, it's been moved and supported. Further comments?
Was there?
Support.
No.
We support.
I'll support.
Okay.
I thought you two gentlemen had, I apologize.
Bradley.
Mr. McConnell, Ms. Bradley. Moved and supported. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mr. McConnell.
Yes. Mr. Mudry,
Support.
Mr. Weinfeld,
Support.
I support. Ms. Bradley,
Support.
Mr. Schweitzer,
Support.
Ms. Elzinga,
Support.
Mr. Kaczynski,
Support.
and Ms. Hunt Proctor.
Support.
Unanimous.
All right, thank you. Mr. McConnell, next.
I don't know if you needed to advise them or not.
Okay,
Probably will.
Mr. Benzer,
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
advise our guest.
Oh, yep. Well, we'll be working with you guys for quite a while. The rezoning recommended approval, we'll talk about when we're gonna get on the board agenda. So phase 1, or well, phase 4A, phase 1 of tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have special land use permit number PSL 2024-0012. K-12 retail construction and development. It is to construct a large-scale retail building in the Delta Crossings development on the north side of West Saginaw Highway, immediately west of Interstate 69/96, parcel number 040-09-300-033-04.
Thank you. Director Menzer, you're up again.
Yeah, if it's okay with the commission, I was planning on tackling both special land use permits together. I wrote the memo together and hope that wasn't too confusing. I kind of went back and forth on how to best tackle that, but. So we'll tackle both special land use permits tonight. They are listed separately on the agenda for anyone following along at home or on the internet. Or in the room here. We've got 2 special land use permits. One to construct a large scale retail establishment at the Delta Crossings development. This is the project stemming from the rezoning that the planning commission just discussed. And then we have a special land use permit to establish a vehicle, and in this case, it's boats of the vehicle, repair and sales service facility in what will be a Bass Pro Shop retail building in the Delta Crossings development. So in the packet, there's a staff review of these 2 projects. I'm gonna go through just really generally. There are a couple different sets of criteria that apply to this request. There are the standard items, the criteria in section 7.03, they're applicable to all special land use permits. But then for these, there are a couple other what we call specific use standards. And so for this, we have large scale retail establishment. And that's from one section of the ordinance. We have standards for vehicle repair. We have standards for vehicle sales service facilities. And what I'd like to do real briefly is just walk through those because you don't see them very often. They're not particularly detailed. I haven't identified any particular issues with these, but I do want to walk through them. So large scale retail establishment really deals with the design of the building. And so it's asking us, is there articulation in the facades and the exterior walls? Does the roof have differing roof lines? That one's not really, the entrance is identifiable. There's a pedestrian connection. And then ancillary functions are those, like how are the outside uses? So loading docks, trash, outdoor storage, that kind of thing. So I don't really have anything of particular interest to add here. The only thing I will add is Bass Pro Shop is compared to other big box stores, relatively unique in design. They offer a very unique design of the building facades, and then the roof line differs in a lot of ways. There are some architectural renderings in your meeting packet that provide examples of this. So I think it meets those criteria. And then on the pedestrian connection, there is a 7-foot wide pathway basically that will connect you from the front door at Bass Pro along a 7-foot wide pathway out to Bohemia Drive, which is the private road that was private service drive that would serve this site. And then from there, a 10-foot wide pathway will get you from Marketplace down to West Saginaw. So they have addressed that pedestrian connection. For the vehicle repair, vehicle sales, leasing and service facilities, this is definitely not the typical application of this use. But I felt that since it is a service they do provide, and a lot of other big retailers don't provide this service, it was unique enough to require the special land use permit just to ensure that we're addressing every potential component that this might have. Bass Pro is definitely a unique retailer. They offer services that we don't often see here. So they have 3 bays that will serve as repair for boats, just like a oil change place where you have a bay where the boat goes in there and gets serviced. And then they do have a little over half-acre area on the far north side of the site for storage. I'm told that's for storage of new boats, but in general storage, and it's not probably outlandish to think a boat under service might end up in that area as well. I don't know exactly how the site will function for that, but so when we call attention to that in the staff memo, just identifying that those are the boat area there is on the north side of the property. I did add a condition related to providing proposed fencing because I didn't see a detail in the provided documents that show what that fencing will be on the very north part of the property. So depending on what ends up happening in phase 6 to the north, we at least want to ensure that that boat area is screened. So the applicant, I did have a call with them today. They'll provide, it's included as a condition to SLUP, but they will provide us that detail and for the next step. And then generally the boat repair stuff, they all face south. The residential developments that are existing now are really to the north and to the west. So all of this, the store and the boat stuff all faces south. So we're not anticipating any issues or conflicts between those two uses. And really our ordinance is more geared towards like a auto repair facility. So a lot of this stuff is not as applicable in this case since everything's happening inside the building. Okay, and then they do sell they do sell a variety of vehicles. We'll call them boats, but there's kayaks and other watercraft for sale. So the other component of this is the vehicle sales, leasing and service facilities. This is kind of the other part of this. These two sections go hand in hand. And there's really nothing to comment on in this case. I did note that the access to the site is provided by Marketplace Boulevard. Marketplace, still, we're going back to phase 1 and phase 2 of the Delta Crossings development, is not a public road yet. That was a requirement on the early phases, but it has not been accepted by the county. So the applicant may provide more information. I've been talking to them for quite a while about this, and they know that it has to come, they know that this has to happen. But I added a condition that the Saginaw to the first phase of the roadway is still not public. So that needs to happen before a site plan review could be granted. And then for the next, because really Marketplace is being extended to serve this site, that next phase of Marketplace Drive would have to be public and accepted by the county prior to us issuing a certificate of occupancy for the project here. So what we try to do with these conditions is set some deadlines and tie them to approvals so that we can ensure that they get done. Everything else looks good in terms of compliance with the standards for these specific use standards for the above and beyond the regular SLUP conditions or review criteria, sorry. So I want to walk you through really briefly the criteria. Or the conditions I have, they mirror each other. So the only thing that's different between these two motions are the references to the sections that you're using to make the decision. But there are 7 conditions, the exact same 7 conditions on both SLUPs. And I'll walk you through that really briefly. So this project is subject to site plan approval, and it's not just site plan approval that would be next on the agenda. Or well, we got a couple items between, but not just the planning commission's approval of the site plan, but ultimately the zoning administrator's approval. So, and I think everyone knows, but the site plan process does not end here. The second phase of it is a staff review. So the building department, fire department, engineering, utilities, planning. We would carry on the review after the planning commission has seen the plans. If there was a significant departure from the plan that you approved, we would bring it back to you for reapproval. And I'm talking specifically about the site plan right now. But I just wanted to note that this project is tied to this specific set of plans and that the process doesn't stop here. So further, I mentioned earlier those details on the fencing for the proposed boat storage area. So they'll have to provide us that. Can't be any taller than 6 feet. Can't be barbed wire, can't be wire or chain link. I am suggesting, Dave, if you could zoom in on the area where there's the pedestrian pathway right in the middle of the site as you lead up to the front door. Yeah, so if you can see it there, or if you can see it on your plans, there are 2 to ensure the viability of these pathway connections that go up to the building, because I just told you how people can get now on foot from Saginaw up to the front door of Bass Pro. There are these, what I have seen on other sites is a conflict where you have vehicles that will park over those sidewalks. So I added as a condition here, there are about 40 spaces on either side of those pathways there. I had recommended in the motion here that wheel stops be installed at those 40 spaces that would keep people from parking over the pathway. So included that as a condition. We have that right now on the plan, there are no outdoor sales areas identified, and they are certainly allowed and they have a lot of space for that. We just request that they'd have to follow our standards for outdoor displays. That's in a different section of the ordinance. So that's how we had kind of teed this SLUP up for both of the special land use permits. If you have any questions about the project or about the conditions, please let me know.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Peter, a couple of things. So Marketplace is not yet a public road. I noticed Bohemia Drive, when that's constructed, is it intended that will remain a private road?
It would be a private service drive, and I have some conditions that will speak to that on the site plan. That is one of the challenges of having all this, and I'm sorry it's so complicated, but having all of this on the same meeting.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's fine.
it'll be a private service drive, and we can talk details about that.
Okay,
at the
that's
next
fine.
item.
And second question, and maybe this is also on the site plan, instead of wheel stops,
Yeah,
from an aesthetic standpoint, it'd be nicer if we had a green space buffer with bushes on either, so there's this green space buffer between the sidewalk and the front end or back end of someone's car instead of wheel stops. Just a suggestion.
sure. And when I don't mean to be prescriptive in providing these conditions, they're certainly up to, they're for you. I think of it as I set it up, and then if you agree or disagree, you want to change them, they're at your
Well,
however you
would
want to
that be
change it.
done in site plan?
The SLUB conditions could be done right now if you have a change to them, or would rather see the green space.
Do the wheel stops prevent cars from going past that point, like
They-
from hitting someone?
They should,
Yes.
They're
yeah, they should
concrete.
keep cars from,
There's also
oh. If you want to, sorry, but if you want to speak, you'll have to come in you'll be recognized by the chair and.
Yes, I'm just saying that those do permit cars from hitting people though, right?
Yeah.
The wheel stops.
Yeah, it sounds like the applicant has a comment on this as well. You'll want to ask
When
them.
we ask the applicant.
All right, would you like to step forward and give your name, address, who you represent, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Debbie Davis. I'm with Cabs Incorporated and I live in Leslie. Yeah, there is a curb face there. It's one of those sidewalk, integral sidewalk curb faces. So, and I did make the sidewalk 7 feet there. So if there is overhang of the cars, you still have the 5-foot wide for the handicap accessibility. So, yeah. So I think between a curb stop and the curb. you should
Yeah, I
definitely be
was
safe.
not doubting what you had proposed
Oh,
in
no.
terms of the cars hitting people. I was just simply speaking from an aesthetic
Yeah,
standpoint. That's
we
all.
actually have the green space on the other side, so we could perhaps center that walk more in the median there and put green space on both. I know that Bass Pro likes to have a certain look as they come up to the building
Sure.
that has landscaping, so I know that they would be open to,
Okay,
whatever we need to do there.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
In regards to the roadway there, the present roadway we have there has no lines on it. I was gonna, complain to the, Eden County Road Commission, but since it's come out that, you guys are still actually in control, so I'll complain to you right now.
Stephen Calabat, Delta Crossings Holdings. So we're the developer group here, and frankly, we don't actually control the road today. So just to be clear, it is in the control of the condo association, which is Spirit, which we are trying to get, we're trying to get to them to get all of the different approvals that were mentioned here tonight. So, in terms of, getting turned over to the county and all that and all that stuff. So we don't actually control that today, but we are in the process of getting that all together. But we will make mention that we will get some striping in there because we have some other properties that are subject to that as well.
Yeah, because actually it's a safety hazard.
Yeah.
People zigzag all around over there, okay?
No,
And
yeah.
I go there, I'm a member of BJ's, my wife likes Olive Garden, okay? So we go there often and it's getting kind of bad.
We will absolutely mention it to the condo association manager. So and we are, actively, talking to them about this roadway
Good.
right now.
Good.
Thank you.
I'll hold you to it.
Please do.
Okay, another question, have we had a traffic study on this since it involves another development?
There's a traffic study included in the report, in the packet.
There's a traffic study in the meeting packet. It addresses Bass Pro specifically. I have a section on the site plan, in the site plan memo, where I'm recommending that the study be expanded to address the forthcoming, well, really to reflect the development as it has evolved, I'll say, because it's not in the same, you saw a full traffic impact study back in, I wasn't here, but back in 2020.
Yep.
That envisioned the site as how it would develop. And I mean, I think that study incorporated in terms of volume that there would be a lot of traffic. I mean, but the land uses have since changed. And this particular, my opinion is this particular site, we do know that phase 3, the residential component that was approved a couple years ago, that has since expired. So the developer is on my desk right now, has resubmitted phase 3 in the same form that it was before. I think it would behoove the developer, the township, to update that study to have a full idea of the traffic that's being generated by this development. To me, it's impossible to ignore the traffic and the public road that would come along with phase 3. And if you remember can you pull that phasing plan up, Dave?
Now, did this involve Carlson Road being developed?
It does. So in phase 3, Carlson Road would be constructed. So Dave's gonna pull that up for us here.
Because like I said, I am over there quite often, okay, and the cars are starting to back up quite a bit at the light, okay? And Bass Pro Shop is gonna add even more to that traffic light situation unless we get Carlson Road opened up to dump traffic out onto Broadbent.
Yeah.
correct?
So what you're seeing on is the phasing plan right now for the project. This is in your meeting packet. So we have the Bass Pro site in blue. To the west side there in purple is phase 3. So phase 3 application's been submitted right now. With that would be the construction of this says Future Street, but it would be the extension of Carlson Road across Broadbent moving east. So what I'm recommending is that the Bass Pro site, I think it's hard to ignore that both sites, I mean, the study we have right now addresses only Bass Pro. And it looks at level of service at surrounding intersections. If you take a look at that study, if you just read my summary of the study, it says pretty plainly that, and it's not that this is the only traffic generator in the area, but that level of service at Marketplace and West Saginaw particularly it operates at a level of service D, but already there are turning movements at PM peaks and Saturday peaks that operate at a lower level of service, but with Bass Pro, that does go down further. So, and that's a product of commercial development in the area, traffic in other places. There is definitely bypass traffic or background traffic. But Bass Pro certainly generates it, as will phase 3. So one all-encompassing study that addresses, so I personally, I think that the main study, the original study, could be updated to incorporate the new uses here, but also to reflect kind of how this is developed to date. And I have a condition related to that on the site plan, not on the special land use permits. It's a recommendation. It's something to consider. Ultimately, I think that would give the township and the developer a better idea of how traffic might flow in this area, and which would ultimately lead to what methods, if any, could be used to mitigate it. One of the suggestions in the applicant's study, the study that we have now, suggests that you could look at phasing and signal timing at that intersection to potentially improve traffic flow. I have what will ultimately be a letter from, we hired Banesh engineering firm there in Meridian Township to take a look at the study that was submitted for Bass Pro. And but one of their first suggestions, which is why I even bring it up, was that the scope of the study needs to change to look at the entire development. Because while you're only looking at potentially approving Bass Pro, the site is it's all really one site. The traffic generated, I could easily see Bass Pro shoppers using Marketplace Boulevard or possibly going out to Carlson and vice versa. So I think there's cross pollination there in terms of traffic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have come out of BJ's gas station on a Saturday morning before the rush and try to make a right turn, and I got a no turn on red. And there's only 6 or 7 cars in front of me. And I'll still end up going through a second light before I can get through there.
Yeah. Well, I don't ultimately know. I've never actually tried. At the end of every traffic study, I think the traffic engineer is saying that you should look at signal timing. I don't know what, just because I haven't done it, how to make that happen. So I think my intent is certainly to push that to see what changes we can work with them down. We can work with the road commission to actually implement those changes that are recommended. We'll try it and see what we can do. But we'll be working with the applicant on, try to address that situation, at least whatever we can do.
Yeah, speaking of timing in the much broader sense, we don't have a schedule at this juncture for phase 3, correct?
We don't have no, I don't have a calendar date for you, but I have the application. Our team is reviewing it right now. I've got some feedback for the development team, but I would imagine it will be on your docket, if not before the end of the year, then early next year.
Well, the reason I ask obviously is that the Carlton Road is tied to the residential development. So I guess the bottom question that I'm asking here is, how long are people going to have to live with the single point of ingress and egress on Marketplace until it's alleviated by broadband?
I would defer to the developer for a timeline on phase 3, but it could be, at least my understanding is now, it could be a couple of years before phase 3 is even if it were approved next week before they were to move ahead and construct it.
Comments? It's the pleasure of the commission.
So I do suggest that you do read that. So we have two separate motions for the special land use permit, so we should deal with them, vote separately.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion, if I have the right one here. I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the Delta Township Board of Trustees approval of the special land use permit request from K2 Retail Construction and Development to construct a large, and I think this is it, hang on, make sure, yep, I think so. To construct a large-scale retail establishment in the Delta Crossings development on the north side of West Saginaw Highway, immediately west of I-96-69, parcel number 040-009-300-03304, as described in case number PSL 2024-0012 for the following reasons, of which there are 2, with the following conditions of approval, of which there are 7.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion?
Commissioner Mudry,
Support.
Commissioner Weinfeld,
Support.
I support. Commissioner Bradley,
Support.
Commissioner Spicer,
Support.
Commissioner Elzinga,
Support.
Commissioner, Vice Chair Kaczynski,
Support.
and Chair Hunt Proctor.
Support.
Passes unanimously.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make another motion. I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the Delta Township Board of Trustees approval of the special land use permit request from K2 Retail Construction and Development to establish a vehicle repair and vehicle sale service facility in the Delta Crossings development on the north side of West Saginaw Highway, immediately west of Interstate 6996, parcel number 040-009-300-03304, as described in case number PSL 2024-0013 for the following reasons, of which there are 3, with the following conditions of approval, of which there are 7.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion?
Commissioner Mudry. Support. Commissioner Weinfeld,
Support.
Commissioner McConnell supports. Commissioner Bradley,
Support.
Commissioner Schweitzer,
Support.
Commissioner Elzinga,
Support.
Vice Chair Kaczynski,
Support.
and Chair Hunt Proctor.
Support.
That 2 passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. Recommend-
So we still have a site plan to go through. So they've got special land use permit approval. That's also sorry, let me start. Special land use permit needs approval from the board. So that'll be also along with the rezoning, go to the board. So the next item, after a couple other items on the agenda, we'll get back to the site plan soon. So stick around.
Okay, we have special land use permit. Number PSL 2024-0011, which is a vertical bridge, construct a 280-foot wireless communication tower within a leased area at 3888 South Canal Road, parcel number 040-033-200-068-00.
Thank you. I think we have a whole Bojack for this.
Yeah.
Yes. Good afternoon. You have to bear with me. I'm a little nervous as this is my first time presenting to you all. We have a 280-foot self-support wireless communication facility that is being brought to us by Vertical Bridge. We have a gentleman in the audience representing them tonight. It is in an industrial area and the parcel is already developed as industrial. and all the surrounding areas are also industrial. The current land use and future land use are both industrial as well. All wireless communication facilities require an SLUP and site plan review to go before you all.
So I would go, so the general criteria for these are, you have your 9 special use permit criteria. And then you've got specific, just like the last SLP, but some specific standards, easy to say, for wireless communication facilities. So why don't you walk through the specific standards?
The specific standards. Okay.
Yeah.
Standard number 1 is whether it's a principal or accessory use, and this is an accessory use to the current development that is already on the property, which is an asphalt factory or manufacturer, I'm not sure. Number 2 is exemptions from the lot area, width, and coverage requirements. And they definitely are requesting that exemption because it's only a 40-foot by 80-foot facility. It's quite small within a very big 17-acre parcel.
Here, let's back up just a little bit, sorry. Just a little context on this is, so it's Hope mentioned it's accessory use, so it's served by, and they'll have an access easement back to a leased area. It's the way these typically work. They'll have a leased area within a parcel, and then the tower will be on the leased area. So they will have a long-term agreement with the property owner to have this on the very back of the site. So it's right along the highway.
Yes.
So you'll see it as you're driving, going north on the highway.
Yes. There are setback requirements. However, this is not in a zone that has more specific restrictive setbacks. That's number 4. Number 5 is separation of 1,000 feet from any other existing tower, and it does meet that requirement. There are no other towers within 1,000 feet of this proposed location. The screening, we want to have a fence around it. They do have a proposed 6-foot fence around the entire facility. Number 7 is state and federal regulations. Has to meet the FAA and FCC and all the other government regulations for cell towers, and there are lots of those. We do currently have a letter from the FAA of no hazard to air navigation. So no plane should hit it. And they will also comply with any FCC regulations as well. And that's per the applicant in their application and their narrative that they submitted. Number 8 is certification by structural engineer. All the plans that they provided are stamped and signed by a licensed engineer for Michigan, here in Michigan. Fencing. There's going to be a 6-foot tall chain link fence, is what they are proposing for the location. Number 10 is lighting and color. It says towers shall not be lighted, or what did we, not lighted, that
Illuminated?
Illuminated. This tower will be tall enough per the applicant that it will require it to be illuminated per the FAA. Number 11 is electromagnetic exposure standards. All wireless antennas and on wireless communication facilities shall be the electromagnetic exposure standards adopted by the FCC. The applicant has provided a letter stating that it will meet all those requirements. Number 12 is an unusual one, a cessation of operation. That's basically saying that once the tower is no longer in use, it has to be removed. And we did receive a letter from the applicant with that stated in their lease for that area. Number 13 is co-location, and they are not proposing any co-location at this time.
So you've got a recommended motion. The applicant is here tonight. If you have any questions for the applicant, certainly our team is here to answer any questions about the SLUP. standards or the use standards. And there's a plan in your packet, just let us know. Yeah, we put 6 conditions or proposing 6 conditions on this. And really, it's just the project has to continue in perpetuity to meet the standards of the various organizations that have requirements of these types of facilities. And if any expansion were to come along, that they would have to amend this SLUP. This project is subject to site plan review, which is later on the agenda. We'll have a separate site plan approval for that. And then the building department could issue a building permit. That's all we've got for this one.
Madam Chair. This is noted that it's supposed to be a replacement for one over on the BWL site. Is that going to remain in service until this one is completed, or is that going to be torn down?
Applicant will come.
My name is Ryan Whitley with Fortune Wireless. I'm here on behalf of Vertical Bridge. Our address is 5511 West 79th Street in Indianapolis, Indiana. As far as the being remained on that smokestack, I don't know what the
Plan is.
I don't know what the timeline of the removal of that smokestack is. If we were to be approved, these things go up pretty quickly, and then it's up to the carrier as to how quickly they want to get back on those. AT&T and T-Mobile are both on that smokestack. T-Mobile will be Vertical Bridge's anchor tenant. So they will move on first, and then AT&T would be a co-locator on that tower.
Okay.
So I would only assume that they'll keep that equipment on that smokestack as long as they possibly can. And that might be part of the deal, that a new tower is built before they swap it. Or else there's gonna be a dead spot.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Well, sure.
Now, for this tower, the decertification, the destruction of it,
Mhm.
is there an escrow account or something to guarantee that the funds are available to do that?
There could be. It is not specifically, that's usually required by a jurisdiction, not by the lease. Vertical Bridge would be in breach of their lease if they were to not remove that tower at the end of its service life. So if they cancel and say, we don't need this tower anymore, they have 90 days to take that tower down. And if they don't, they'd be in breach.
Then it would be up to the township to,
Well, the landowner who the lease is with would be able to take action from that point because they're the ones that would be breached, if you will. If you want to set a condition, it happens all the time, so it's not a big deal. If a bond is required, Vertical Bridge will happily provide that if necessary.
because I know for solar farms, there's has to be a bond.
Sure, solar farms are significantly larger in scale than a single cell
They're
tower.
completely different.
Right. So I'll leave that up to you guys as to how you typically operate. I would ask that we be treated the same as everybody else in that space. But if you do need a bond, make that a requirement and I'll take it back to Vertical Bridge.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I could briefly speak to that, we do not require a financial mechanism for this. We certainly have the ability to require a performance guarantee. I am not particularly concerned. It is a concern. It's always a concern that something like that. But I think we have enough tools to go after the property owner or whomever is kind of left
Okay.
with it. If it, I would be comfortable with addressing it in other ways.
Okay, good.
And I will say, just on behalf of Vertical Bridge, they're a huge company. We run into these issues quite often. Towers are taken down all the time, and they have been very responsive to jurisdictions' requirements to do so, as well as fulfill their requirement of their lease.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a public hearing, Bob.
Yes.
Public hearing.
Yes.
You need to open it.
Further comments, questions, concerns?
No.
Pleasure.
Go ahead.
You're gonna move to close it?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
I move to close the public hearing.
Support.
I was gonna do the same.
I'd like to make a motion,
Okay.
Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
I move the Planning Commission recommend the Delta Township Board of Trustees approval of the special land use permit request from Vertical Bridge LLC to erect a 280, I believe that it should be foot, right? It says floor, but foot tall self-supporting wireless communication facility at 3888 South Canal Road, parcel number 040-033-200-268-000, as described in the case number PSL 2024-0011, for the following reasons, in which there are 2 listed, the following conditions of approval, of which there are 6 listed.
Support. It's been moved by Commissioner Brandon, supported by Commissioner Elzing. Further discussion? Mr. McConnell.
Commissioner Mudry,
Support.
Commissioner Weinfeld,
Support.
Commissioner McConnell supports, Commissioner Bradley,
Support.
Commissioner Schweitzer,
Support.
Commissioner Elzinga,
Support.
Vice Chair Kaczynski,
Support.
and Chair Hunt Proctor.
Support.
We have unanimous support.
Yes. Mr. Nelson.
Yeah. So moving on to the next item, this is the site plan review application for K2 construction and development, which is, as we've discussed previously, the construction of an 87,000 square foot retail building. Tenants identified, the Bass Pro Shops will be occupying that building. It's on about 27.5 acres, just north of phase 1. So phase 1, if you drive down the highway right now, you would see construction equipment out there. That is to build a Best Buy building. That would be at Delta Crossings. Just north of that is the Bass Pro site. So there's a couple items in the site plan I think are probably worth discussing. As noted earlier, the process itself, this is the planning commission, approves the site plan, but after that, the project lives on with the Delta Township team. And so we review the different aspects of that internally, and then work with the applicant. Potential revisions, sometimes there's back and forth, sometimes we get one really good plan, or oftentimes we'll go back and forth with the applicant addressing items raised by our team. But ultimately, they would receive approval from the zoning administrator. And that signals kind of the end of the second phase of site plan review. I think it used to be called preliminary and final. So we're trying to move away from that. Public utilities, I noted before, the utility plan is under review by our engineering and utilities departments. I haven't raised any flags that we don't have capacity for this project. The Delta Township team is working on a couple different infrastructure projects that will ensure that there are the available capacity for this project and others in that area. So we talked a little bit about traffic before. I provided a couple of paragraphs in the staff review or the site plan review memo specifically related to traffic. I did include as a condition of approval that the study be updated. I mentioned earlier this letter that will be getting from the engineering firm Benesh. I think in spirit, what that says is the plan needs to be updated to incorporate kind of more holistic approach to the entire development. And then ultimately that would help the project ensure that there's a full scope of the traffic produced by this development, the other phases in this project, and that we could pursue mitigation measures wherever possible. And I don't know all of those right now, but that's the ultimate goal. So lighting, there is, I think, 3 places on the plan where the lighting levels are above the standards for the township. Those should be easy fixes by the applicant's end. So the standards that we employ and really boiled down are that at the property line, there's a lighting standard. In this case, it's 0.5 foot candles. And in any given location where there's a fixture, it can't be more than 10 foot candles. So there's a couple areas, just I think 3 on the site where that doesn't meet it. So I added a condition to the site plan approval that would require the plan be updated to meet those standards. The other thing I'm asking for here is a profile view of the light poles. We have a standard for the mounting height of 30 feet. So I just need a profile view that shows that, that 30-foot dimension. So I mentioned that to the development team this morning. Parking, as you all probably know, the township has both a minimum standard for parking, but also a maximum for parking. This project is over on the maximum. They sought a variance from the zoning board of appeals last week and were denied to provide additional parking beyond what's allowed here. So I've been talking with the development team. Their intent is to revise the plan to remove 126 spaces. So we don't have that plan. They're working on that plan right now. So, but the plan, ultimately, the plan would need to reflect that those spaces being removed to comply with our ordinance. And then we have the review criteria here, the standard review criteria for site plans. And ultimately, I want to get to conditions because I'd like to take some time to walk you through these. So please don't be scared by the number of conditions. I put a lot on here, but I put them on here purposefully.
That might be a record.
Yeah.
I've seen this many.
And I see it, the way I see it is, this represents really a first flush review from our engineering utilities team. And what I like to do is get this information rather than get a letter in 30 days from our team that has comments. We have been doing our best to get ahead of this. You know, I think we have 16 active site plans right now. Our team is overwhelmed with projects, but given the complexity and the size of this project, we wanted to get some initial comments to the applicant now. So what you see in the middle of this are a bunch of engineering and utility comments. So I included those because they're important to include, but also really for the applicants, informatively to the applicant, so they know the kind of things that our team is identifying. So if it's okay, I'd like to walk through at least some of these. We have a lot of these that boilerplate ones. And when I say like site plan approval, some of this might be new to you and I have a certain style that we have. I like to do these things. Site plan approval is granted in accordance with the site plan prepared by KEBS. And then you'll see there's a couple different conditions specifically to the plan. What I like to do is just tie the approval to a plan with a specific date. So there's no confusion on what exactly you saw and what was on that plan, the content of that plan and what was approved. So some of that's really just kind of restating those things so that we all know exactly where we're at. Starting with number 3, I included the 2 conditions I noted earlier about lighting. So the photometric plan would need to be revised to address those items. A lot of this is boiler, approval is always subject to Eaton County Road Commission, Eaton County Drain Office, MDOT, Eagle, that kind of thing. MDOT's not relevant in this, but in the Road Commission, I don't think is going to have comments, but the Drain Office will and Eagle will because they'll have infrastructure that needs Eagle approval. So I'm sorry, I'm just going through these slowly. I'll make sure that everything's in here. Number 8 is related to, we do not yet have for phase 1 and 2, the water infrastructure, the utility agreement signed and approved by the board. So those have to happen. And I'm tying that to site plan approval for this phase. So those will need to be completed before we can grant site plan approval. Number 9 is reflective of my comments on the traffic study. I don't think that this would be, they don't have to go out and do counts or anything. This should be trip generation work on the engineer's behalf. So the way I have it written here is revised to incorporate traffic generation from the other phases of the Delta Crossings development, both existing and planned, and to address issues identified in the forthcoming letter from Banesh. I realize that's kind of broad, but the intent here being to pursue the mitigation efforts that they would identify, and recognizing that it may not be 100% possible to implement all of those, but I'd like to take the effort. Then the revised study shall accurately reflect the land uses in those phases that have been already constructed. And the project, it does differ from the original submittal in 2020. So number 10 speaks to that, MDOT Eaton County Commission. So I'm saying here, the applicant shall work with MDOT and the Eaton County Road Commission, implement the recommendations regarding signal timing and phasing at the Marketplace Boulevard, West Saginaw Highway intersection as identified in the submitted traffic impact study. And again, that's in the applicant study today. Okay, number 16 is related to, we talked earlier about the Marketplace Boulevard not being public yet. So that was a requirement of phase 1 and phase 2. So we would withhold final site plan review approval or zoning administrative approval until the existing segment of Marketplace Boulevard that connects to Saginaw Highway is converted to a public road and accepted by the Eaton County Road Commission. Number 17 speaks to the next segment of Marketplace Boulevard. So Marketplace is being extended to serve this site. So we're tying the conversion of that to a public road and acceptance by the road commission to an occupancy permit for the new business. So I think with the timeline that's been identified, that should be doable. And if we run into issues, I have here, or the appropriate performance guarantee is provided, kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with the cell tower. We do have a provision where we can require a performance guarantee. I don't have a vision for how that might manifest as of now. Hopefully we don't have to go that way, but at least I wanted to tie in that those roads need to be public. Number 18, A through P are all engineering comments. I really don't have the expertise to speak to those, but there's technical details of the plan that the engineering and utilities department is requiring. Number 19, I would propose, I did meet with the applicant this morning. This is related to the south side, well, it's not the south, west side of the plan. Keep in mind the site's kind of angled. Our team originally kind of is just a best practice of when we run through, we'd identified it's shown as future access road to the north on the west side there. Our team had identified that as being extended to the northern property line. I no longer think that's necessary. That's something that after meeting with our development team again this morning, not this development team, the internal review team, that was put on as a condition, as it's kind of boilerplate thing that we throw on project anytime we see something that's not complete. We would suggest that it gets done. I don't feel like we need to pursue that, and I would suggest at this point removing condition number 19.
Yeah, would that be addressed then during phase 6?
It would, yeah, it would be completed when phase 6 comes. And that, in my discussion with the developer this morning, that's not imminent. So it didn't make a lot of sense to require that it be extended. So I'd like to scratch number 19. 20 is the Bohemia Avenue shall meet the standards for a private service drive in this section of the ordinance. That section of the ordinance speaks specifically to private service drives. It requires it to be 35 feet wide, restricts parking, and otherwise it's constructed much similar to a public road. It's just it's narrower. 21 is the fire department. Really, this is kind of this is the township's fault. Our site plan review application does not address the fire department's requirement for new businesses to provide a chemical survey. So it's just an inventory of the hazardous materials they may keep on site. I'm not anticipating anything necessarily hazardous at Bass Pro Shops, but just that they complete that for the fire department. Number 22 is related to storage of merchandise and storage containers in the parking lot. Just in a very brief kind of visual survey of other sites, and actually our township manager visited the site in another part of the country. There were storage containers in the parking lot at this facility at Bass Pro Shop. We would prefer not to see long-term the storage containers. I have other ways to have those removed from the zoning ordinance, but I wanted to lead with that and let you know that this is the expectation for this site is there wouldn't be storage containers in the parking lot. And they'll have other places to display merchandise. 23 speaks to the demonstration pond on the site. So Dave, can you hover over that? It's the other below that. Yeah. So the applicants indicated that their area is identified as a demonstration pond. I guess that this retailer uses those areas to so you can try out merchandise. You could throw a kayak out there. I think they have classes for fishing. So they plan on using that space. It would be full of water. It's not used necessarily for their stormwater system. So all I'm saying in condition number 23 is that any structures proposed in or around that pond are subject to or very likely administrative site plan approval, just because we don't have all the information on how it might be used, and there might not be anything proposed there. 24 speaks to a requirement for a special land use permit for the establishment of a condo on this property. I do not anticipate that that's where this is going, but it should have been required in earlier phases. The other earlier phases were done, they ended up being condos, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that a special land use permit is required to establish a condo for this property. And the reason for that being not so much the township would ever deny a condo. That's really something that the owner has a right to do. It's really that we would get all the documents along with that we need. 25 speaks to a private road maintenance agreement for this private service drive on this Bohemia Avenue that would kind of be the primary service drive off of Marketplace Boulevard to Bass Pro Shops. So, and in this, and I kind of took this out of another section that we have, anytime someone would develop a private road in the township that serves residential properties, we have a whole section on that. We issue a permit, but I took the language out of that to ensure that we have long-term maintenance is covered. So the costs, the responsibilities, ensuring that owners have access to it. Some of this information is covered in some of the internal documents that I've seen from the applicant already, but we'll want to get, I would like to see that in a final form addressing Bohemia specifically. And then 26 would be that the plan has to be revised to as it relates to exceeding the maximum number of parking spaces. So they either comply with the ordinance, which is what they have telling me they're intending to do, or they must seek, in this case, it would be a different variance from the zoning board of appeals. They can't ask for the exact same thing, but they can ask for a different number. But it sounds to me that they are planning on redesigning to remove those 126 spaces. So a lot of conditions on the project. I am comfortable with this moving to staff review. If the planning commission is comfortable with the conditions that are stated, I think the applicant is able to deliver on the things that are noted here. But if you have any questions, please let me know.
Yes.
So I do have a question, probably should have asked it earlier, but now that I see this condition, which the parking lot of the property should not be used to store or display merchandise. So unfortunately, I want to go back to where we're going to store the boats. And there's going to be a fence around that, right? But the boats will still be visible as the fence is only going to be 6 feet high. And boats sometimes are a little bit taller than 6 feet.
And please, guys, if you have any information, step up. The way I understand that would work is, though there is an area around the store. Dave, do you mind zooming in a little bit on the store itself?
On that north.
So there's a couple different spaces. There's area in the front of the store, so facing south, where I would expect the merchandise to be displayed, and where I have seen it at other Bass Pro Shops, and just in my cursory review of Bass Pro Shops in the country. So they have room for the outdoor display. What this condition is specifically saying, it can't be in the parking lot. The boat storage area in the back, the way it's been described to me is that is for new retail, but not for, so this is really actual storage where it's not boats that are ready to be on the sales floor yet. And it's just storage area.
Right.
Not for sales, not for customers.
No, I understand.
Okay.
That's not my question. My
Gotcha.
question is, the boats will be visible.
We have a condition on the on the special land use
Yeah.
permit to require fencing around that.
6 foot fence.
6 foot fencing, Yep.
Boats will still be visible above that fence.
potentially, yeah.
And is that going to
then-
be a problem for any residential area?
Well, in my opinion, the residential is significantly located to the north, so they do plan on doing housing, but there's 2 commercial developments. Can you go back to the phasing plan? Yeah,
I
feel
just
free,
meant
yeah.
the existing residential area. I don't mean future residential areas.
Sure,
I mean the existing residential area to the north and west.
gotcha. I would defer to the ownership team to tell you more about that.
Steve Calavan again, Delta Crossings. So the residential area to the north, there's going to be a huge buffer. I don't know exactly the length there, but I'm guessing it's at least 200, 250 feet before you actually get into residential. So behind it will be some other commercial and whatnot.
Right.
So
This is-
it'll be completely
At the end of the
of
day.
no consequence. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, in regards to number 23, the demonstration pond. You're talking about removing 100 and some parking spots. My suggestion would be to increase the size of the demonstration pond to cover that.
Why?
Yeah, so we considered that, rather than doing that, though, what do you, it's, I guess it's not the subject of today's approval, but I'll just mention what our thoughts are. We are going to remove the parking all the way to the north of that, where that retention, all that triangular area will be a green space. And then along, you're facing the Bass Pro to the left, everything along the left side, going towards the back, right there. Yeah, all that goes away, and it'll just be it'll get shortened. The length will be probably about 50 feet or whatever, 40 feet, and that'll just be a truckway, and for boats and things like that, and that's it. So it makes it a lot easier for us. They need more parking in the front. They just need more access and more convenient parking for the folks who want to shop there, rather than if you push those up, then people are forced to park on the side and then walk all the way around.
Yep,
So.
okay. Thank you.
What are they actually demonstrating there anyhow?
Boats,
We don't see
they've got water in there. I think that they've got some fishing demonstrations. They've got some kayaks and things like that. So it's supposed to be pretty neat. I've personally not seen it, but it's kind of a neat event
I
supposedly.
would
So.
see how they would be able to demonstrate boats. That doesn't seem to be a big enough area at all.
Doesn't look like, well, I presume no motorboats, or maybe they'll drop some motorboats. They probably can't run them, obviously, but I'm not gonna comment on that.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm prepared to make, oh, no. You want to do
No, I was saying, the parking was answered.
it? Okay,
Thank you. Sorry.
I'm prepared to make a motion. I move that the planning commission approve the site plan to construct an 87,000 square foot retail building in the Delta Crossings development on the north side of West Saginaw Highway, immediately west of Interstate 6996, parcel number 040-009-300-03304, subject to the following conditions, of which there are 26. Oh, did we get rid of one? We did.
We removed 19.
25. Thank you very much. Of which there are 25.
Support.
It's been moved and supported by Warren Jones and the Commissioner of the panel. Further discussion? This is a voice vote. Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Site plan.
Thank you. So, before the planning commission tonight, we have a site plan review for a proposed 2,496 square foot industrial office addition to the existing 3,280 square foot office building for Buer Lumber.
Buer Lumber is located south of Mount Hope Highway and east of Kreitz Road. The property is currently surrounded by an existing vegetative buffer, which was an initial requirement in the late 90s. If you can see this north or this red arrow right here, centrally located on the property is the location of the existing office. They previously have had some administrative site plan reviews in the last couple of years. And the extension of this parking lot was part of the last one. So if we look on page 2 of the staff report, we have a enlarged view of the office building and looking at surrounding zoning and land uses. Essentially everything around it is zoned industrial. However, there are some varied land uses. To the north, there's some existing non-conforming single-family homes. And there's also some vacant office on the north side of Mount Hope, which is part of the Auto Owners South Campus. In the staff report, we listed the square footage and names of all the buildings on site. We gave you a little history on the development of this parcel within the township. It is a very modest request based on what we just heard. I don't have 25 stipulations, but I am recommending approval with 3. And we can take any questions, and the applicant is here if the planning commission has any questions.
No comments, no questions? Entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, should it offer a motion?
Please.
Following motion is offered planning commission's consideration. I find the applicant has met all required criteria for approval in section 6.07B of the Delta Township zoning ordinance, and hereby move that the Delta Township Planning Commission approve the preliminary site plan for the proposed Buer Lumber 2,496 square foot office building expansion with the following stipulations, of which there are 3.
Or
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
So we have a couple more approvals that we need to get, and then we get to the building department.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Bojack.
Yes, ma'am. So this is the site plan review for the cell tower. It's pretty straightforward. Luckily with cell towers, a lot of it's so engineered that, it usually meets requirements. Let's see. It is an unmanned facility, fully automated, so there won't be much traffic or impact to the local businesses. Again, all the businesses around it are industrial. You can see from the picture. Can you go down to the next page, Dave? Sure. So they can see. My red arrow is an approximate location of where the tower will be located. And it is very approximate. I will just to warn you. And it's pretty straightforward. It meets most of our standards that are concerned. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Or let Mr. Whitley know.
Yes.
The stormwater facilities, is that to the south of it there?
Yes. Yeah, there's a small retention pond to the south of where the tower will be. That little green spot in the
All right.
picture.
If there's an overflow from that pond, would that flow interfere with the tower?
Ryan Whitley, once again with Fortune Wireless. So the way that the tower, it would not affect the tower in any way, shape or form. It would be submerged potentially a foot if that ever happens, which
Right.
the way that this site is laid out. That retention pond is a lot bigger than it actually looks. It's fairly dry in that picture there. The likelihood of that being overrun is extraordinarily small.
Right.
Virtually no hard pavement will be placed within that compound. It will be a gravel compound. So it's in, it should be able to seep right through. Any runoff, it would be naturally taken to the pond to which it sits next to.
Well,
I don't know if that thing's ever overflowed in the past. I wouldn't have that information. I don't know. But in regard to the actual ground equipment that is up there, T-Mobile chooses to put theirs on a raised steel platform, and that's just standard practice for them.
right.
So they have an 18-inch buffer on pretty much everything that they put out there anyway. So it should have no effect
Right.
on us whatsoever.
Yeah, well, the way the weather patterns are in this country right now.
There's no doubt, right?
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Questions? Comments? Entertain a motion.
I find the applicant has met all required criteria in section 6.07B of the Delta Township zoning ordinance, and hereby move the Delta Township Planning Commission approve the site plan for a 280-foot wireless communication tower within a 40-foot by 80-foot facility at 3888 South Canal Road with the following stipulations, of which there are 3. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion?
I have one point.
Yes.
On 14, we're talking about a waiver requirements. Is that gonna be a waiver or a variance?
Oh, sorry, you're talking to me. There's so many people now. I'm just reading I'm reading the thing again. It would be a waiver, and it's a waiver that I can grant, that where they're just saying there's already existing landscaping here. We don't have to provide any more. And I would agree with that, given the
Alright.
location. of the
And
highway.
just to clarify, typically speaking, when landscape requirements are made for towers, it's typically to shield the chain link fence. In this instance, it's a asphalt plant.
Right.
That ground is probably compacted for years and years. It's all gravel. Odds are anything that were to be planted there would die. So that was our biggest request
All right, thank you.
for the waiver. Is because I don't think it will survive any.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? No? Entertain a motion.
We had a
Oh.
motion's been done. Need support.
It's been need support.
Support.
That's
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Oh,
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is a little bit, that's an interesting one. It is a addition to an already existing industrial building located at 6424 Westland Way. It is a 5,942 square foot addition onto the northern section of the building, which is already at 10,135 square feet. So with the addition, it'd be at 16,077 square feet for the building. It's a medical company. They make, they produce pharmaceuticals for cancer research. All the adjoining properties are all industrial, all the way around it. It's an industrial area. Let's see.
If I elaborate on the use a little bit.
Yes, please.
So it's not so much part of pharmaceuticals, is there's a cyclotron in the building.
Yeah.
They smash atoms together and they grab the isotope, and then that gets used as drugs. It's not a drug. I don't, you guys can classify it better. Maybe I'm not using the right words, but
They get turned into pharmaceuticals.
yes.
Yes.
So the addition, they would add another cyclotron so that up their capacity.
Yes.
Same purpose as the F-RIP.
Yes.
Questions or comments?
I just want to make a comment that we are also working with this company to potentially support them, so I just want to put that out on the table. If there's any conflict of interest.
Thank you.
Question, setbacks, I don't know, can't tell what with how they sit with the setbacks on to the rear with that addition back there.
Yep, they do meet the setbacks for the rear. That's not the good page. Hold on. Nope. There's a better one. Keep going. I think it's one more. That one.
30 foot.
Yep, it meets the 30-foot setbacks,
All right,
even with the addition.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Further comments or discussions? Now we'll entertain a motion. Yes.
I move that the planning commission approve the site plan to construct a 5,942 square foot addition to the existing 10,135 square foot building located at 6424 Westland Way, subject to the following conditions, of which there are 6.
Support. It's been moved by Commissioners Kozinski and Elzinger. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is public comments.
Just want to, excuse me, Madam Chair, I just want to thank the gentleman for being so patient.
Yes.
Yes.
You're a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Planning Director comments.
I don't really have any comments. We are planning on, as I provide a comment. We are planning on having a meeting in, on the 28th, because we have a rezoning of the former funeral home at 6020 West Saginaw. What was the name of the funeral? I don't remember the name.
Estes Ledley. It was an Estes Ledley, I believe.
Yeah, so it's been vacant now for a couple of years. So the applicant is proposing to rezone it. If it's zoned office, they want to go commercial. So we'll have a staff memo and meeting packet prepared for you for that meeting. But that's the only item on the agenda.
It smells like a trick.
Too close to Halloween.
All right, thank you. Planning Commissioner's comment.
Yes, I do have one.
Okay.
With the Delta Crossings development, I still think that in the future with all the traffic is gonna be increasing. I don't know how many times full, but I think an idea would be to have off from Willow on the overpass would be to have entrance ramps.
Sorry.
Not exit ramps, but just as it's something to take the heat off from Saginaw. That's my thought.
It'll be up to you.
I know.
That's right. World.
The only relief really coming for that project would be the extension of Carlson. And then ultimately, when they do, if and when they move on to phase 6, would be a road up to
Right.
Willow. But we don't have any timeline on
Doesn't make
that.
Any sense until then?
Right.
Well, if we can get the lights, the timing switched, I think will be incredibly helpful.
Would make a huge difference.
Yeah. it'll be-
And we're
Game
still,
changer.
to the best of my knowledge, being promised at least the possibility of boulevarding Saginaw at some point in the presumably fairly distant future.
Yeah, I've
That's
got-
still out there.
Right, I've got a meeting later this month with, they're doing a kickoff, MDOT is hosting a kickoff meeting for that project, and by kickoff, I mean they're kicking off early preliminary engineering. So they're still years ahead, we've been told 2027 or 2028 for that, and so, but a little context on that, so the same firm that I hired for, to review the traffic study for Delta Crossings is Benesh, where the township through the Corridor Improvement Authority is using Benesh to kind of be our ally in the discussions with MDOT. Because when during this preliminary engineering phase, they come up with alternatives for the project, and we just want to ensure that they're looking, like leaving no stone unturned essentially, so that we are. And also helping with outreach with the businesses and the residences in that area to help them understand exactly what may be being proposed and help coordinate the messaging.
Sounds like Commissioner Schweitzer just unturned another stone.
Yeah. So I don't know what relief that might provide. We don't know yet, but we'll find out.
We've got all those departments that have been built in Grand Ledge itself, but, adding to the traffic on that. On Saginaw, I avoid using that highway at any time,
Yeah.
if at all possible.
Any other comments? There being none, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
I'm sorry, I should have said this. Thank you to the staff.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you to the staff and thank you to the chair for a well-run meeting.
Okay, thank you.